Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today, we're going to be going over 10 fun vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. Now hopefully this isn't too similar to any of the other lists on YouTube. I know this is a semi-popular video topic, and I've been requested for my take on it. So without further ado, let's get into it, starting off with number 10. To start off with, we have the Nagasaki BF400. Now the BF400 is one of the most fun bikes in all of Grand Theft Auto Online. On top of that, it's also the fastest off-road vehicle in the entire game, so that's just kind of an added bonus. The BF400 goes for $95,000, and for that price you get a very fun vehicle to do stunting with. Now, you can do this with really any bike. You could even do this with the Maybotsu Sanchez if you wanted to. However, I felt like the BF400 is just a better option because it is still pretty cheap and it's just as fun, and it's even faster than the Sanchez. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, really. Now, a lot of the things that you can do with a bike like the BF400 are wall ride, like you just saw me do there, and now I'm gonna, faceplant, nice. Obviously, you can do jumps and stuff, and a lot of what I like to do with my BF400 when I'm riding it around is try to jump off of things and land on other things, or hit little like combos. I don't know how to explain it really, but you know, go up on something like this, then maybe, you know, jump up here, land on the stairs, hit the light post, why not? Just, you know, do stuff like this. I feel like the BF400 is really fun for this reason. Bouncing off cars, stuff like that, crashing against walls, falling off the bike. It's all pretty good stuff. For $95,000, the BF400 is a lot of fun if you guys are in the mood to do some stunting or just ride around a bike. Go exploring with this thing. Obviously, it's a great off-road vehicle. You can climb Mount Chiliad really easily with this thing. There's really nothing that the BF400 can't do except, well, like swim and like fly. Regardless, it is a really fun vehicle. Next up, at number 9, we have the Ramp Buggy. Now, the Ramp Buggy goes for between $3.2 million if you do not have the trade price, and $2.4 million if you do have the trade price. Now, the Ramp Buggy, I mean, this one really probably doesn't need much explanation. Obviously, I'm going to explain it for the guys that don't know much about the Ramp Buggy, but you basically can drive under vehicles and just send them absolutely flying. So, you know, it's a fun vehicle, I'm not gonna lie. I actually really do like the Ramp Buggy. It's kind of a blast to just drive through traffic and just throw everybody away. Now, beyond that, the Ramp Buggy's not really like that crazy good of a vehicle, but it is fun, so it definitely belongs on this list. I feel like it's always a blast just driving underneath huge vehicles and just like slamming them right into the roof like I just did to that thing. The Ramp Buggy's a blast. You guys should definitely pick one of these up if you do not have one already. That's it for number 9. Let's move on to number 8. Next up at number 8, we have the Dubachi JB700 Weaponized. Now, this thing is available for about $1.5 million on Warstock Cash and Carry, and for that price you get a really fun car. Now, this thing's interesting because it was, I believe, the first car within the game to allow you to drop proximity mines that were not explosive. This thing has either spiked or oil slick mines that you can drop behind it. On top of that, it also has machine guns that you can equip on the front of it that will absolutely destroy anybody that gets in your way. These things are actually pretty good. They're not that much better than the Night Sharks, but I would say they're about equivalent to the Bravado Buffalo STX and cars from the Contract DLC. Any of those that can have weapons, I'd say the JB700W is about equivalent to them. Obviously, the JB700W takes heavy inspiration from James Bond in real life, or the James Bond movies, I should say. This thing's super fun to drive. It doesn't handle all that well. It's pretty fast though in a straight line. Really, you can't complain about it. I mean, it looks great. It's super fun. It's got the machine guns. It's got the oil slick mines that you can drop behind you, or the spike mines as well. So it's pretty cool. So that is pretty much it for the JB700W. As you guys can see, I'm just gonna oil slick mine these cars all out of my way, make them hit each other. So this car is really fun, and I definitely recommend picking it up. With that being said, let's move on to number 7. Next up, I mean, I don't really think we need any explanation here, but we have the fire truck. If you guys have never driven the fire truck in GTA, which I mean, I feel like everybody has, but you can operate this this cannon on the top of it, the water cannon that is, and you can absolutely destroy civilians with this thing. As you guys are about to see, these two people here standing outside of this trailer are about to get water cannoned, and you can quite literally kill civilians with this thing, or players. And what I would recommend doing is, if you can get close enough to a tryhard with this thing, it will absolutely ruin their day if you water cannon them to death. Trust me, I've done it at least 1 or 2 times in my life, and both times, even though it's a pretty rare occurrence, it was a very enjoyable experience. And I would highly recommend trying to do it. It's honestly a blast. Now the fire truck's not that fast or anything, so I mean it's not going to be, well, I don't think anybody was expecting this thing to win you races. Just in case you were, it's not going to. Now it is a tad bit expensive. You can actually buy one of these things, or you could just steal them, which is what I would probably recommend doing, because it costs $3.3 million if you don't have the trade price, and it costs about $2.5 million if you do have the trade price. So either way, it's pretty expensive, and you're probably not going to use it all that often. So I don't necessarily recommend buying one of these, but definitely go and steal one. They're a pretty fun vehicle to have, so definitely go and check that out. Anyway guys, that is it for number 7. Let's move on to number 6. Next up at number 6, we have the Bravado Gauntlet Hellfire coming in at $730,000. So this is one of the cheaper vehicles on this entire list, and it's definitely one of the more fun ones. Now, regardless of how you feel about Hellcats in real life, I don't care if you're a Ford guy or a Chevy guy, whatever, the Hellfire in GTA is a very, very fun vehicle to have. You can pretty much never get this thing to actually go around a corner without drifting it. It's kind of hard to get this thing to actually do that. As long as you are applying throttle, it's just not gonna happen. And you know, I like racing in GTA a lot, so I'm not a super huge fan of the Hellfire when it comes to racing, but when it comes to free mode driving, I mean, it doesn't really get much more fun than the Hellfire. This thing is an absolute blast to drive. I mean, you can do donuts with it, you can drift with it, take it to car meets, it's got tons of customization. Overall, it's just a super fun vehicle, and I definitely think that everybody should try to own a Hellfire in GTA Online. It's definitely worth it, such a sick car. And if you're ever bored, you can have an absolute blast with it. And the nicest part is it is relatively cheap, so even if you really don't like it, you can sell it and you're not going to lose that much money because it's not that expensive in the first place. So there you have it. That's it for number 6. We have the Bravado Gauntlet Hellfire. This thing is definitely worth picking up if you guys do not have one already. Next up, we have 2 vehicles. We have the Rhino tank coming in at $1.5 million, and we have the TM02 Kinjali at $3.8 million, or $2.9 million if you have the trade price. Now both of these vehicles are pretty fantastic when it comes to having fun. The only problem is the Rhino is a lot less armored, which is kind of a huge issue with this thing, and it's really the only issue with the Rhino. I actually think that this thing looks way better than the Kinjali. I mean, I love the Rhino. I think it's so sick. I would actually really like to see this thing get an armor buff. Now obviously these things are pretty fun because, well, they're tanks, so they, you know, you have a cannon and you can shoot it and blow things up from quite far away. And on top of that, you can also play baseball with both of these vehicles. And truly, the ability to play baseball is probably both of the tanks' best feature. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Kinjali is pretty good for fighting other players, but playing baseball is just a blast, especially with the Rhino. It is a little bit easier to play baseball. If you didn't know what I meant by playing baseball, that's where you go and hit other cars on the street and send them absolutely flying. You can even do it to civilians if you really want to, except they're not very good as a ball. Your cannon will sometimes occasionally kill them, like that. I think I just killed that guy. This guy's a trooper. That's what the cannon's for. You can play baseball with the Rhino and the Kinjali, but the Rhino is a little bit more effective because the barrel is at a lower angle. As you can see, you can absolutely slap Los Santos transit buses out of the way. This thing is an absolute blast. Oh, into the sewer we go. And I mean, not to mention, they both are tanks, so you do of course have the ability to just run vehicles over, which, I mean, it's pretty fun, let's be honest. I mean, this Karen intruder, I barely touched it and it just blew up. Okay, a little bit weaker than expected. Now I know that I've only driven the Rhino in this segment of the video, but basically the Kinjali operates the exact same way. It's just a little bit more armored, so it has a little bit more protection for the players inside. It's also got 4 seats. It's got grenade launchers that the last 2 players that are sitting in the vehicle can operate, and a machine gun on the top that the secondary person in the vehicle can operate. Now the Rhino has the secondary machine gun as well, but that is it for the Rhino. So anyway guys, there you have it. At number 5 we have the Rhino and the Kinjali. Both are tanks, both are very fun. If you had to buy one though, I'd probably recommend the Kinjali just because it's more useful than the Rhino overall, but I felt like giving the Rhino some love in this segment of the video. Next up, of course, we have the Phantom Wedge coming in at $2.6 million without the trade price and $1.9 million with the trade price. Now the Phantom Wedge is basically the ramp buggy, but just like kind of huffing glue. Or maybe some similar substances. The Phantom Wedge is an absolute blast to drive. You can actually get this thing as a gun running sail vehicle, which is one of my favorite sail vehicles, I must say. The Phantom Wedge is just a blast though. I mean, you just run into as many cars as you want and launch them into the middle of nowhere, sometimes launching yourself even, I guess. Seriously though, every single time that I do a gun running sail mission with the Phantom Wedge, I always enjoy it, and I always drive down the highway just like I'm doing right now, hitting all of the vehicles in my way, out of my way. This is maybe the only vehicle that can bash things out of your way better than the Insurgent or the ramp buggy. The Insurgent truly is a very goated vehicle for getting things that are in your way out of your way, but the Phantom Wedge is really in a league of its own. This thing is absolutely awesome. And it's very, very fun to use against players that are griefing in armored vehicles. I particularly enjoy using it against the Toreador, but that might just be me. Anyway guys, that is it for number 4, of course the Phantom Wedge, absolutely awesome vehicle, and definitely a very fun one. Next up at number 3, we have the Oppressor Mark I. Now make no mistake, this is the Mark I and not the Mark II. This thing goes for between $3.5 million if you do not have the trade price, and $2.6 million if you do have the trade price. Now, I've recently acquired myself an Oppressor Mark I, and I have to say I've actually been enjoying it quite a bit. I was never a fan of the Oppressor because it used to be the griefing tool for those scumbags, but now they of course have the Oppressor Mark II, as I'm sure you all know. In my eyes, now that the Oppressor Mark II exists, and I know it's been out for a while, but it's taken me some time to come around to the idea of it, but the Oppressor Mark I truly is an acceptable vehicle now, and I've finally come to the light and realized that this thing is actually an absolute blast. As you guys can see by the gameplay in the background right now, I'm just absolutely cruising in this thing, and if you don't get it with missiles, you can't even force yourself to really bother anybody. The Oppressor Mark I is a vehicle that I kind of wish that I bought a lot sooner in GTA Online, because this thing is actually just a complete blast to fly around. It's one of the only vehicles where you can just sort of cruise it around and just fly, and I don't exactly know how to describe it. I guess gliding would be the best word. You can just glide around with this thing, and it's like, it's nice, man. It's nice. I gotta say, it's actually very enjoyable. And you can do tricks with it and stuff like that in the air. It's an awesome vehicle, and I regret being so harsh towards the Oppressor Mark I. And for that, I do apologize. To the Mark I, of course, but not to griefers. I will never apologize to them for anything. Anyways, that is pretty much it for the Oppressor Mark I. This thing is a blast. Get one if you don't have one already, just make sure not to be a griefing scumbag with it. Not that many Mark I users are anymore, but just in case. Anyway guys, that is it for the Oppressor Mark I at number 3. Let's move on to the next vehicle at number 2. Next up, I'm sure many of you saw this coming, but of course we have the Scramjet. The Scramjet, I mean, I probably don't even need to say anything. It's probably been on all the other best and most fun cars lists before mine, but there's a reason for it. And I mean, the Scramjet, it's a blast. It's just a blast. I mean, what else can you say? Just so much fun. I mean, it's got rocket boosters. You can jump it up in the air and rocket boost. It's fast. You can drift with this thing. I've seen the crazy videos of the Scramjet drifting in Grand Theft Auto Online, and they're honestly really impressive. The Scramjet's used in a ton of Rockstar created game modes as well, because this thing is just such a blast, and I think that Rockstar knows that. I mean, obviously they made the car, so they probably know better than anybody else does. The Scramjet really is just absolutely awesome. Now, I have to say, I'm not a big user of the Scramjet, but when I was creating this video, I had to think of, like, you know, the most fun cars to use, and the Scramjet came to mind from my very little time using it, which has earned it such a good place on this ranking. This thing is awesome and is definitely a very fun vehicle to use against griefers. I've seen other people do it. I'm not very good at it myself, but I have seen what people can do with it, and it is very, very impressive. Overall, it is one of the more fun vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online, and for one more day, it's actually on sale. So if you guys don't have one of these and you've been looking to get one, it is on sale at the time of this video releasing. However, if you're watching this later, it's probably not going to be on sale anymore, unfortunately. So go pick this thing up if you guys can. It is an absolute blast. And with that being said, let's move on to the number 1 most fun vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online. And at number 1, we of course have the Pegasi Toreador. Now, you may have seen this coming, or you may not have seen this coming. Now, I personally feel like the Toreador is one of the most fun vehicles in this entire game because it combines so many things. Obviously, it has the ability to launch missiles out of the front end of it, and they are some of the best missiles in the game. On top of that, it also has the front-mounted machine guns, which are some of the best machine guns in the game. It has the rocket booster, of course, so you can launch yourself up onto the highway out of the canyon if you do want to, of course. It's also a 4-seater, so you can do all of these activities with another 3 passengers, which, I mean, who doesn't like to do that? It's pretty awesome. Of course, it also does have the ability to be a submersible vehicle, which is just, another great feature. And for being a submersible car, it is probably one of the best submarines in the entire game, I have to say. Now, on top of all of this, if you have a Kasatka submarine, the Toreador is also equipped with a sonar system that will allow you to find underwater treasure. To recap, I mean, this car is a 4-seater. You can go underwater with 3 of your friends in the vehicle. You can boost underwater, you can boost on land. You got missiles, machine guns, and when you're underwater, you have torpedoes as well, which, come on, why not? Why wouldn't we have torpedoes? Overall, the Toreador is a very versatile vehicle for having fun, I feel like. Definitely one of the easiest vehicles to have fun in my opinion, because it is just so versatile. You can do almost anything with this car, and it will do it relatively well. And of course, when it comes to actually driving this thing on road or on land, it's pretty damn good at what it does. And of course, I haven't even mentioned this thing is also quite armored as well, so if you run into trouble from an oppressor boy, you might even be able to take them out with this thing, because it has some of the best missiles in the game, albeit not the best, but some of the best, and it's relatively well armored, enough to take about 6 to 8 missiles, depending on where they hit you and if your car is damaged already or not. Overall, the Toreador is an absolute blast. This is definitely one of my go-to cars for GTA Online. Definitely one that I spend a hefty amount of time in. And a lot of the time when I'm in it, I am having quite a good time. So, there you have it. The Toreador is the most fun vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online, in my opinion. Anyway guys, that has been it for the top 10 most fun vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online, in my opinion, of course. Let me know in the comments down below some fun vehicles that you guys personally like to drive around or fly around or whatever you do with them. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Dislike, of course, if you did not. Subscribe if you guys are new, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.